Well, last week the media were in full campaign mode, not reporting what the government is doing, but telling the government what to do, and supporting any politician who agrees with them. And last week it was ban conversion therapy. Wall-to-wall media coverage all week, interviews with campaigners for a ban, but as usual, as with the cannabis referendum, a completely biased presentation with no balance, with nobody from the opposing side. The one dissenting voice that was allowed to speak up was National MP Simon Bridges, but this was in a weekly discussion on the AM show on various issues, and this topic was simply raised. And of course, he was slammed for going against the media narrative. Now, the term conversion therapy has been coined by activists and the media, but it's not clearly defined, and so the rest of us are left trying to work out what it means. Basically, it means therapy aimed at changing an individual's sexual orientation or gender identity. Now, if it means therapy or practices which are coercive, abusive, or involuntary, or includes things like electric shock treatment or anti-gay boot camps, then we can all agree that such things are inhumane and must be condemned. These types of therapies shouldn't be part of any community, let alone a faith-based one. Therapy or counselling should never be forced on anyone. And sadly, in the past, many state institutions have sanctioned inhumane treatments, such as electroconvulsive therapy, ECT, being stripped naked and being locked in a small room, massive doses of medication, lobotomies, screaming patients chained to chairs. Now, fortunately, these are not part of current practice in the state, and they're certainly not part of any religious organisation. Under this proposed ban, though, people would be prevented from getting help to live the lifestyle they personally choose, if that lifestyle is heterosexual or based on their biological sex. So while gender and sexuality is supposedly fluid, activists want the law to stipulate that it can only go in the direction that they approve. The state will sanction any transition to any of the 100 plus and counting genders, as long as the direction is away from that decreed by chromosomes. Those who dare to seek inner freedom and healing will have nowhere to turn as a result of this type of ban. Now, Family First has just released a legal opinion on the proposed law to ban conversion therapy, which shows that the proposed ban will be yet another attack on parents' rights, and the ban is fundamentally flawed and dangerous. The opinion is by Grant Illingworth QC, and it's based on the Labour MP Marja Lubeck's private members bill, which is currently in the ballot but fortunately hasn't been drawn yet. But the government have indicated that this will be the basis of the legislation that they may introduce sometime this year. The legal opinion says that a ban would criminalise parents who wish to protect their child from the physical, emotional and psychological harm caused by gender dysphoria. Parents would be criminalised and liable to 6 months imprisonment simply for affirming that their sons are boys and their daughters are girls. These bans will lock children into transgenderism. The government wants to legislate against the discussion and practice of alternatives to hormones, surgery and confusion. Merely encouraging a gender-confused child to wait for the orientating effects of puberty to be worked through may be considered a form of child abuse, or domestic or psychological abuse, as has been suggested by the Australian Labor Party and is happening in Canada and in the United States. So a parent who promotes biological sex will be criminalised, but an activist who indoctrinates your child with the concept of gender fluidity and third gender will be celebrated. This is not loving or compassionate towards children. It will also be illegal for a therapist or other professional to counsel someone with gender dysphoria in a way that affirms their biology. Islamic and Christian schools could be breaking the law for teaching their students that Allah or God made us female and male. Church leaders, youth workers and imams could become criminals for reading and explaining the Quran or the Bible. That is, for doing their job. And if you're a church leader or youth worker and someone says to you, "I'm struggling with my sexuality and gender identity, please pray for me," you may be being asked to commit a crime. It is primarily Christianity, prayer, counsel, biology, common sense, and help for those struggling that they want to ban. Here's the interesting bit. Back in 2019, the Justice Select Committee, consisting of MPs from Labour and National, considered 2 petitions wanting to ban conversion therapy. And in their report, they rightly declined to support such a ban, stating, "The Bill of Rights Act affirms, protects and promotes human rights and fundamental freedoms in New Zealand. It allows all New Zealanders to live free from discrimination, including in relation to their sexual orientation. New Zealanders also have the right to freedom of religion. This protects those who offer and seek out conversion therapy because of their religious views." Now let's be clear, all New Zealanders should be protected from coercive, abusive or involuntary psychological or spiritual practices. However, participation in psychological assessments, counselling sessions, prayer meetings and other therapeutic practices is almost always an expression of voluntary behaviour and personal freedom. Now here's a quick example. Walt Heyer was previously transgender. He actually visited New Zealand and spoke at our conference a couple of years ago. He's a good friend. Here's what he says about the problem with bans on conversion therapy.
They will identify anything that helps someone desist from being a transgender as conversion therapy. That means if I sit down in a coffee shop with somebody and I spend time talking to them and they go, "Well, you know, maybe I don't need to do this," they would say that I'm doing conversion therapy. Today, many laws are being passed that prevent people from going for therapy so that they're locked in to their transgender identity. They don't want you out. They want you locked into it. The truth is, if you're diagnosed with a dissociative disorder or obsessive compulsive disorder or some other disorder, then you have the opportunity to go to therapy and actually work through it, and you will desist from even wanting to change genders. I do know that good, sound talk psychotherapy that deals with comorbid disorders, sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, will allow you to desist from undergoing unnecessary hormone therapy and a totally unnecessary surgical change. That I do know. So you can call it anything you want, but they use the boogeyman conversion therapy term to identify anything that helps people desist from transgender life.
And there are many more stories like Walt's. Banning practices which bring about positive change for people in pain, changes they genuinely desire for themselves, banning them would be the real crime. So check out our new website, freetolive.nz. Read the background of this issue, read the testimonies, read the legal opinion, and then start speaking up. Oh, by the way, there was heaps of media coverage promoting the ban on conversion therapy last week. Here's the media coverage of the legal opinion, which we've just released, which pushes back on that positive coverage. Yep, silence. We need you to speak up. Check out freetolive.nz.